So we're at the stage where we have our retry fully working. However, it might be nice to actually wait a few moments, wouldn't it? Because retrying instantly may fix our issue. However, we might have to wait a few moments, so we can introduce this concept of a delay. So instead of using our retry, we're going to go up to the top and we're going to swap our operator for retry when. So if we jump back down, we can say retry when. Now this will give us an error because argument of type number is not assignable to the parameter type errors observable. So you can see here that we are now given a function which gives us the errors, which is an observable, and we need to then return an observable. So we now know the footprint of the function, so we can then go ahead and start adding some logic. So let's go ahead and grab those errors, and inside we need to return the errors because we need to return an observable, so why not return the one that we're actually using? And essentially we want to just pass some custom logic. Now because we are using an observable here as well, we're essentially having another pipe. So yes, we have one pipe here, but because errors is an observable, we can then pipe off of it again, pass some operators, and then provide some further logic. So what logic do we want to supply? At the moment, our requests are immediately executing, so it might be a nice idea for us to add a delay. So if you type delay, hit enter, this will then go and import things from RxJS. This is a delay operator. Delays the emission of items from the source observable by a given timeout or until a given date. So here we can pass in a number, or we can pass in a date stamp. Now we're just going to use a number, which is then going to be milliseconds. So if we pass in 1,000, this is then going to wait 1 second. So if we hit save, we have our delayed request, which every single second are now firing a request. So we kind of don't want this because this is going to keep making requests indefinitely. So really we want to limit our requests to a specific amount. Now for this, we're going to use and introduce to you the take operator. So using take is something that we can pass into this pipe, and it says, I want to just take 2 values or 4 values, however many times we want to retry. So above when we did something like this and passed in retry of 2, that's kind of just saying, under the hood, I only want to take 2 of those items. So what we can do is import take, make sure you hit enter and import this, and then we can pass in 2, for example. So it's important to remember to have your delay and take, and you can see down below, when we then hit save, we only take 2 of those values, we can refresh, we then have a second apart, and those retry when are then firing, and we're only taking them twice. So this actually cleans up our code, and we can actually make this a nice one-liner by using an implicit return with our arrow function. So I don't know about you, but this feels really nice. We have our errors, we then pipe off of it, we then provide a delay, and then we can take 2 of those values. So now what I'm going to do, instead of passing in 1,000, we're going to pass in 5 seconds. Now before we do this, we're going to jump back into our package.json, hover over our DB, we can then press run script. I'm going to then save our application, which is then going to error the first time. But because we're waiting again, you can see we're waiting for 5 seconds. Because our server is back up and running, we then have that successful request. So you've now witnessed how to successfully retry a failed HTTP error. We've used retry, and then we merge things over to retry when. We've learned about the errors, which is given to us as an observable. We can then use this magic pipe, which allows us to pass in any operators that we like. We're dealing with these pure functions, which then pass the values to the next. So when our delay fires, our take is then going to kick off. It's going to take the first value, it's going to take the second value, and then it's going to finish that observable. But of course, if we come back online beforehand, it's not going to take it twice because we're not going to have a retry if it was successful the first time. So I hope you like this lesson. This is a really nice feature that we can add to delay our retries. It's a nice simple one-liner that we can add to our HTTP logic. I think it makes sense, and it really shows the power of using RxJS with Angular's HTTP client module. And I think it also helps answer the question of why should we be using observables? And it's up to us how we want to provide that functionality to our requests.